Hello everyone, today we're going to look at decision trees and let's just think about which option should the directors choose out of these two possible investments. Should they launch a brand new product which, if successful, should have sales of 300,000 a year for 4 years, running costs of £200,000 per year. Obviously that would bring in £100,000 every year net cash flow. Or should they buy a robot for 50,000 when it brings in savings of £50,000 per year for the next 4 years? And just thinking about the profits of those, the first one would give you a profit of 350,000 overall. The second one would give you a profit of 150,000. But what about the risk? Which is the riskiest of the two options? Launching a product or buying a robot? Surely, given that 1 in 5 new products succeeds, surely the new product launch is the riskier of the two. Now we can quantify risk when something's been done before. So for example, we know 4 out of 5 new products fail. So we know the probability of success is 0.2 and the probability of failure is 0.8. Anytime the circumstances have happened before, we can try to quantify the risk. So we're going to look at a worked example now. Last year's summer fair was a washout at Grange School. And the question is, should we do one this year? And would it be financially worthwhile to run a summer school fair? Can we look at the risks involved? Well, how should risk be quantified? You need to think about the possible outcomes. What could go right? What could go wrong? So the possible outcomes for this summer fair could be a pleasant summery day, a showery day, or a total washout, very heavy rain, and a total disaster. And by looking at Met Office data from the past few years, we could work out there's a 70% likelihood on this particular day in June that there's going to be pleasant weather. In other words, a 0.7 chance. And again, using that Met Office data, we could work out there's a 20% chance of showers and a 10% chance of a washout. Now what we do then is calculate the expected value of this fair. We know from previous fairs, if there's good weather, we would expect to make around £2,000. Poor weather, a little bit less, and bad weather, even less. So what we need to do is average them with, not a normal average, we're not going to add them up and divide by 3, but we're going to do a weighted average. In other words, there's a 0.7 chance of getting the 200,000 because there's a 70% chance of it being a summery day. There's a 0.2 chance of us earning 1100, and there's just a 0.1 chance of the washout. So when you do the weighted average, we'd say we expect on average that this fair would bring us in £1,670. So we could draw that just to show that we've got 0.7 chance of this, a 0.2 chance of this, 0.1 chance of this, and by multiplying them all together we put the expected value into the node here on the diagram. A node is just a circle, by the way. What would we rather do? Our decision is, should we run the fair or should we do nothing? Well, there's always the option of doing nothing. I must tell you that setting up the fair would cost £1,000, and that's going to include the bouncy castle hire and some other expenses. So going back to our decision tree, what we should do is write the cost of running the fair down here, and then we can write the profit, or the net gain as it's often called, which is this minus this, just by the square. So what would we rather do? Do we want £670 or do we want nothing? Well, obviously we want £670, so we're going to cross off the option that we don't want to go with, and we're going to run the fair. And that's how the decision tree will help with our decision. So just a few key pointers. Where there's a chance of certain outcomes happening, we use a node or a circle. When we make a decision, that's a point with a square. When calculating, we always go from right to left. Whenever you use a decision tree, you always move from right to left, and you finally make your decision on the left-hand side at the furthest left square. Just a pointer on using decision trees. Ask yourself, where did we get the probabilities from? Who produced the figures? Of course, it could be based on biased or inaccurate data. So the tree is only as good as the data that's been gathered to use it. Decision trees only look at quantitative figures. There may be other moral reasons, ethical reasons to consider. Running a summer fair, for example, might do a lot for the image of the school, even though it makes a slight loss. We might be looking to do it for the community or some other purpose. So we don't just make decisions, as we saw with investment appraisal, on quantitative data alone. So that's decision trees. Hope you found it useful. And I'm off for a lemsip. I will see you very soon.